Here we go. Focus. Speed. I am speed.
We will never sleep, cause sleep is for the weak. That we will never rest, till we're all fucking dead.
No, sir, man. I don't like that crap. I'm a rocker, dude, through and through. Here's my favorite bands. AC/DC, Van Halen, not Van Hagar, Skinner, Def Leppard.
All right, we're on in 5 minutes.
We're headlining. We shouldn't be going on until at least 11.
It's the prom. It's over at 11.
Hey guys, what the heck is going on? My name is Sam Cox and this is the IMG podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. So today we got to sit down with one of these coolest guys you guys will ever meet or ever hear on this podcast. His name is Pablo Trujillo, and he is the guitar player / steel guitar player for the band Micky and the Motorcars. If you guys aren't familiar with the Motorcars, I would highly recommend pausing this podcast and going and checking them out. If you're, involved in the Texas country / red dirt Americana music scene, if you have been for a while now, chances are you've heard of this band. They are, I don't want to make them sound old even in the slightest, but they are kind of legends at this point. They've been a staple country act in this scene for pretty much as long as I can remember. We're super stoked to finally get to sit down with Pablo. Elisa is the one that brought him to the podcast, and I've been really excited to finally get this interview out here for you guys. Pablo is literally like the nicest guy that I've ever met. Man, he's just so freaking cool, and he has a lot of really cool advice on this podcast for up and coming musicians, and a lot of tips for what are quote unquote sidemen. Even though he is 100% in the Baron family, he has a lot of tips for how you can stay busy as a working musician when you're not on the road. So that's really cool. We kind of get into his background, and then he has some tips and tricks for traveling. And he kind of schools us a little bit on professionalism and, road courtesy, if you will. So there's a lot of really cool advice in this. And then he gives us some of his pet peeves. I always like asking people their pet peeves on this podcast because I think deep down, if you've listened to this podcast for, a while, hopefully there's been a time where you're like, oh, man, that was me. I've done that. You don't have to tell anybody, but just learn from it. That's what these things are about. So, Pablo's a really cool guy. Super stoked that we finally got to sit down with him. And just wanted to say thanks to him for having him on the podcast. Today, I'm also joined by the one, the only woman that needs no introduction anymore, but I keep doing it just in case this is your first podcast. Her name is Elisa Compton. Elisa is the manager for a band that I am in called Raglan, and she is also the tour manager for Miss Sunny Sweeney. So Elisa has a lot of info on all this as well, and she's just always a great person to just talk to on these podcasts because she's just so full of joy, almost to the point to where it's very, very annoying sometimes, but we love her. So Elisa Compton, everybody, and we're here with Pablo Trujillo. This is a really cool episode. I'm really glad we got to do this. So, here we go.
I followed you on Spotify, and I will be listening to him.
Hell yeah,
for
man.
Sure.
Yeah. No, we're just nerds. We're just business nerds, music business nerds, and this is a good way. Me and Elisa, we don't get rich off this at all, but we do this just to like grow our network and just kind of get to know people and stuff, and I don't know, it's always a fun time. So
talk about music.
Sometimes that comes up. Yeah.
And it's funny you say that, the word networking, because when it comes down to it, I mean, that's all this game is. Yeah, you got to be able to play. Yeah, you got to be able to like be a face and interact with the fans or whatever. But when it comes down to it, this is a big networking game, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
No, it's, we've said this on the podcast so many times, but it's sadly and thankfully all in the same time, it's like, it's about who you know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people. It's all, man, it is 80% network and 20% talent. I fully believe that sometimes. And it's because there's a lot of truly great musicians out there that don't have that haven't built a network, and they're not really doing a whole lot of stuff. But on the flip side, like, I know a lot of artists that are questionable, but they're at the same time like they have all the friends, and they're the guy, and it's like that's so no.
And that's Pablo, man.
I think that you're so awesome. I was kind of telling Sam, like, when we were in Key West, and like, I just love it. Like, he's out there, he's talking to the fans. You know, like, a lot of people don't have that personality that they want to interact with their fan base, or they want to just
wait. Were you the one that filled in? Did you fill in? No. Okay, was that somebody else? That no. Okay, you play guitar and steel, right? For Motorcars, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Who was the guy that filled in? What was his name?
Same band, but different.
That was Andy. That was our bass player.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bass player.
Yeah.
Okay. Never mind. My bad. Got you confused.
No, you're fine, because we were headed to our show, and I remember him telling me, he's like, yeah, I got a call late last night, and I've been learning tunes and doing that. And it's funny because, like, he and I had a good conversation about that exact thing, because I have done that with other groups and other bands, getting people out of a bind. And that just goes back to what you were just saying about the whole networking thing. I mean, everybody in this scene in the Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, whatever area of the U.S. we're going to call it.
We used to be able to define it. We can't define it anymore. It's just
there's no lines anymore.
Yeah,
it's family. We're just a big family. But yeah, I mean, we get those calls. I mean, last year in Key West is a perfect example. There was a Jimmy Buffett tribute for the Sequestered Songwriters deal, and somebody couldn't make it, so Courtney Patton asked me if I could do it last minute, and I did the same thing last year. I stayed up late learning Jimmy Buffett songs, and I won't say I became a parrot head, but I definitely gained a respect for Jimmy Buffett that I didn't have before. And it's cool. I mean, I guess goes back to the whole networking thing. Like, you get those calls sometimes where you got to like show up and show what you can do in a short amount of time.
Yeah, I imagine being go ahead, Lisa. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, Andy kicked ass. Like, I mean, I haven't seen that much energy in a long time on a stage. Like, and it was just really cool because he had like 12 hours. Yeah,
and he's a good player though. He's got a great ear. I mean, he's actually still, I think, the newest member of the Motorcars, and since he's come on, he's just added so much. I mean, he's so fun to play with. He's a good player, and he's not a bad guy.
He's nice.
I imagine like filling in on bass has to be a lot more pressure, because like if you're not in on the one, like you're off, you know what I mean? And for somebody like, for a lead guitarist or steel player or something, it's like, you can add steel to almost anything and it sounds like freaking awesome. You know what I mean? And not that you're not great. I'm just saying, like, for a bass player, it's like, boom, if you're not on, then if you're not on the one or something, like you're off, so I've never done a fill in bass gig, so I don't plan on, I don't know. Screw that.
I started off playing jazz. I was in
let's get into this. Okay, so fill me in on your background. So where you from, all that stuff.
So I'm from Victoria, Texas, and I've been playing guitar. Guitar is my main instrument for about 21, 22 years. I kind of get that mixed up. I really don't know the exact year, but I started around 2000, 2001, something like that. And I just wanted to play guitar. And I told my mom one day, and she's like, I'm not going to get you something that's going to sit in the corner of your room and collect dust. And it wasn't
Look at me now, Mom. Look at me now.
Yeah, no, she loves to tell that story, but it's funny because now it's like I was up till 3:30 in the morning working on songs last night because I'm putting together a project right now. I'll get to that later though. But I started off just teaching myself YouTube. It was like the beginning of YouTube, and there was a lot available, but not as much as there is now for sure. And I just got into it. I played every day. I would get up at 4 a.m. every single day before middle school and just play guitar until I had to go to school. And then sometimes I'll take it with me, and was watching YouTube videos, listening to stuff. And I kind of started off just teaching myself. And then eventually I started going and just playing with older players that were in the local scene in Victoria. And it just kind of blossomed into this thing that I couldn't stop. And I ended up joining the jazz band and the mariachi group in high school. And I did that. In fact, I got my letterman in mariachi, which
is great.
I don't think not many people.
Never heard of
that's
it.
The coolest thing. Yeah, and I didn't even play guitar in mariachi. I played the guitarón, which is the big, huge bass. And I loved that thing, and I can still play it. I just haven't touched one in 10 years. But no, so I did that. I joined the jazz band, which was like a big band jazz band, full horn section, full rhythm section, and that was really where I think I did a lot of my growing when it comes to like understanding harmony and music theory and all that, and putting it into the guitar. And then I remember I went to the band director one day after school and just like, hey, I want to learn all of the science behind this and how it works and all this. And I was so blessed and fortunate to have good instructors. Adam Mardner, Robert Rodriguez, and David Edge were three guys that like, I'll take everything they taught me to the grave. And I mean, what they taught me, I use it on a day-to-day basis. But anyway, so yeah, I did that. I joined a rock band when I was like 16 called Speed Limit 10. And it's funny how our lives go full circle, because I just got a wedding invite to the lead singer's wedding
that's cool.
This year. And I was just talking to him yesterday, like, hey, we need to do a reunion show. That was a fun deal. But yeah, I did all that and just kind of dipped my fingers into a little bit of everything as far as genres go. And jazz is the one thing that I think stuck to me the most. And the reason I think I brought that up initially is because we were talking about bass players and how they're, important they are in their role. And there's little sayings that my instructors used to tell me that I don't forget. And I hear them in my head all the time, which I guess that was the point. But he's like, the bass player is the bus driver. You got to let him do his thing. You got to follow him. And, if he messes up, that's on him. But the bass player is the bus driver, is what they used to say, And that may be more so in like jazz, in the jazz world. But still,
hey, you hear that, babe? I'm the bus driver. That's what.
So funny. Yeah, make sure. See, now you're going to hear me saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a lot of little things, because I do some teaching too on the side, and like I carry those little things. Another one is, if you can sing it, you can play it, and that was not something that I really put into practice until I started playing steel and had to break down like more intricate parts that there's no tabs available for, or you have to use your ear, or this guy's using a different copedance than you are on your steel, which a copedance is how your steel is actually set up, because different guys have different setups on their knees, and they're usually the pedals are all the same, but sometimes my steel might be set up completely different than somebody else's, and having to listen a little bit deeper to figure out parts, or play something that I hear in my head.
Well, what was that word again? What is it?
Copedance.
Okay, I was about to say, I don't know. You lost me on that one. I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna nod.
That's why I said what it was immediately after, because I always forget. Like,
it's a $10 word right there, man.
Yeah, well, not only that, but I don't know if you've ever stood around in a circle of steel players, but that's a whole different level of like nerding out.
Oh yeah.
No, I did. We played, because we have a steel player in our band, and when people actually, his name's Micky Shaper. He lives in Welch, Oklahoma, which is, way it's even farther north than us. But if somebody says anything about his equipment, he's like, well, it's funny that you asked, because yeah, we would joke that backstage at a festival or whatever, you can see guitar players and drummers just like huddled in little cliques talking about their equipment and where they got it, and what brand and stuff is, and yeah. And
I think that is a just kind of an excited thing that we get, because we don't get to talk about it a whole lot. And whenever somebody gets interested in pedal steel, it's one of those things that I want that next generation of people to try to learn it. I want it to stay alive, because I'm 33 years old, and people come up to me sometimes after shows like, I just can't believe somebody as young as you is playing this thing. And I'm like, man, you should see kids like, that are 18 and flying on this thing that have been playing their whole lives, But,
are you talking about Wyatt? You talking about Josh's new? Yeah. Wyatt is from, he's a buddy of ours from up here, and he's, baby, how old is Wyatt? Wyatt Wilson, man, this kid, Elisa, this kid is 18 or 19 or something. And we did a show with him 3 months ago in Kansas. And he's like, man, I got a new gig. And I was like, who with? And he goes, Josh Ward. And I go, shut the fuck up, for real? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, my first show.
I think I met him at Steamboat.
You did.
Probably. Yeah.
I did because
By far the youngest person on any stage.
Yeah.
Right now. Yeah.
He was the one that didn't have a beer in his hand.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I just have.
Doesn't say why
you're talking about. Yeah.
The world's so small because Wyatt's a friend of mine, and it's cool. Like all over the U.S., there's dudes that are young and playing, and but the community's still small, and everybody knows everybody. Like, would you say Matt Welsh? What was his name?
Mikey Shaper. Close. Mikey Shaper. He lives in Welch, Oklahoma. Yeah.
Okay, that's why I said Welch. I'm sure at some point I'll meet him, and we'll nerd out or something. But it's cool to see this like generation of young steel players, because I was very fortunate to have some mentorship when I started playing steel. So let's talk about that for a second, actually, because that's kind of a fun story. And this goes back into how I got started with the motor cars, because it was all kind of a culmination of changes in my life. But long story short, I didn't play steel, and I got a phone call from or a text message from Dustin Schaefer. He plays for the Saints, and actually there's a picture of me and him right there. I don't know if you can see it or not.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
And he told me that the motor cars looking for a guitar player and maybe somebody who plays steel. And so I was interested, and I wanted to audition. And I didn't play steel at the time. This was in 2018. And I was like, but I'll learn it. And because I had always kind of had an interest in it. And I would fake steel parts on guitar, but I didn't know how the instrument worked. I didn't know anything about it. Ended up getting a hold of one from a friend of mine, Sam Hankey. I'll always be grateful for that. And he let me borrow one. And I'm not kidding you. I just shut myself in a room for a month learning 3 motor car songs: Bloodshot, Carolina Morning, and gosh, I can't remember what the other one was now. Those were the 2 that stuck out, though. Yeah. I don't remember what the other one was. But I learned Carolina Morning on pedal steel and on guitar, just so I would have both ready.
Right.
And when I showed up for audition time, I sucked so bad. I was so bad at it. And I was just.
But you know what's funny is on steel, and I say this as somebody that not even just people in like the Raglan camp, but in other bands, most people, even though we've been playing country music most of our lives, we don't know what a bad steel guitar sounds like. As long as you're in key and like you're like, oh, sounds good, man. That sounds great. Like,
oh, you'd have known, because I mean, I'll be honest with you, it took me a year and a half to learn how to tune the damn thing.
Oh yeah,
and, and that's still kind of a daunting deal, because I use a tuner and then I tune half of it by ear. So I have to have a way for me, like if we're setting up on a stage and I've got my rig set up, I've got a couple of different amp setups, but I've tried to make sure that every one that I have, I can use headphones to just cut off the output and tune it before we play. And there's so many variables that go into that. Are we in a higher altitude? Is it cold?
Right, that's what I was going to say. Steamboat, wasn't it such a problem for you? I know it was for ours.
Yeah, and fortunately Steamboat, I had a sound check pretty early on, and it sat and acclimated inside. But if we were playing outside, that'd have been a nightmare.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, because my steel is 40-something years old. It's just an old piece of wood that was sitting in a closet forever, but it's temperamental for sure.
Yeah, it just seems so complicated to even just, which our guy, he's, I don't know, he doesn't complain about anything, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, just having to playing steel in general, you've seen the I don't know. Well, I saw this meme the other day. Well, I say the other day, it's probably like 6 months ago on Twitter, where this guy's returning this book to the library, and it's like, he's like, cool, what book you returning? And he's like, this is how to play fiddle. And he goes, come check out that big one right there. And it was like twice as big, and it was like how to play steel. And it was like twice twice as big. But I feel like people get into things like steel because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you want to make money and you want to work, and there's like a shortage of, steel players out there, and
yes, that is a huge bonus and a huge perk, is like, as long as I play steel and I keep getting better, like I will always have a job doing that for sure.
Yeah.
Because, and then the other thing too is being proficient on guitar and steel, I think carries some weight too, because you'll have guys who are just steel players, also. But if I were to show up to a gig, and I mean, Motorcars are a perfect example. There have been times where we couldn't make my steel happen, or there wasn't room on the stage, or I had a problem with my gear. And because of that, I've made sure that I know as much of the parts that I can do on guitar as I can. So like Carolina Morning, one of our songs, is a perfect example. I can play that song on guitar and pedal steel. And my main guitar that I use on stage has a B bender on it, so I can emulate some of those sounds that a pedal steel gets. And I think being a steel player also has helped me with the expression behind that too, because I don't play with the B bender like a guitar player would, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You know, I treat it like a steel player would, utilize a volume pedal with it and hitting it,
It seems so complicated, man. Like you have to use your knees and your feet, and both hands. God,
I always describe it as trying to fly a helicopter when you don't know how to fly a helicopter while wearing somebody else's underwear.
I love it. I mean, I think that it's just such a unique instrument. I think it's great. And I think some of the steel players I've met are some of the nicest, and they're so talented. You're so talented. Mm-hmm. I mean, you kind of like, can you play any other instruments besides the guitar?
So somebody asked me just the other day, and I counted, and if you throw some technicalities in there, I play 8 different instruments.
See?
Hell yeah, look at you.
Yeah. It's like a whole nother level of genius, in my opinion. Every steel player I know.
And they're all, most of them are stringed instruments. But, and that's what I say when you get technical, because lap steel and pedal steel are 2 different things. And I've actually, it's right here. I sit here. This is my lap steel, and I keep it.
Oh, nice.
Here. It's, and I, have it here. It's almost like a second keyboard. But yeah, I play guitar, mandolin, ukulele, steel, melodica a little bit. I can fake keys, bass. I sing. I don't know how many that was that I named off, but
more than the average, yeah.
What about the banjo?
I can play the guitar too. So I don't play banjo. I did restore and repair one for somebody one time, and I messed around with it. Give me about a week with it, and I could make it work.
Oh, I guarantee you could.
Yeah, it's. I mean, a fretted instrument. The concept is usually the same. The right hand technique on banjos where it gets different for sure, and then of course how they're tuned. And I'll be honest with you, keeping up with tunings is a whole other thing too, because this lap steel right here in front of me is a 7-string C6-9 tuning or something like that. But I'm still learning how to play this thing, to be honest with you. And I'm actually, just last night, I kind of had when I told you I was working on tunes and working on putting together songs, I'm trying to put together a jazz combo where I don't want to play guitar. I want to play just lap steel. And I've got some guys lined up that I'm trying to get together to do some stuff, because I'm in Austin, and
and that's what I was going to ask, man. Like, so, and I kind of wanted to go down that rabbit hole as far as you want to go, but I know there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are frontmen, or let me back up. Then they on 4 or 5 episodes ago, we had Michael Kelton, which he's the drummer for Pat Green, and so we were kind of having the same conversation where he was talking about finding extra work as a quote unquote sideman, or somebody that is, you know what I mean? So, and that's kind of where I was wanting to go down that rabbit hole was, you being in Austin, like what all do you do besides the motor cars? Are you just like, hell yeah, man, I got 3 or 4 days off a week, or are you just like, are you out there trying to, I know Sean from the Wilder Blue. I mean, that motherfucker plays 14 gigs a week, I think,
So he's one of the guys that's probably going to do this new project with me. He messaged me last night.
There you go. Yeah. There you go. 15. What's it?
There you go.
What's another gig for Sean? I mean,
we were nerding out talking about jazz standards last night about this, because that's something that I want to have as a side project to generate income, of course. Right. So to answer your question, and I'll get into that in a second, what I was just saying is I do, when I'm off, I try to fill that time playing with other people.
See, that's what I was wondering. Like, okay.
Yeah, and that goes back to, being a versatile instrumentalist, because, I play so many instruments. I could go find a gig, doing a lot of different things. Hell, this past weekend, perfect example. It's not an instrument, but I do some booking for a band called the Stout Brothers, and they're based out of Victoria. Really good friends, based out of Victoria and New Braunfels, and really good friends of mine. They played a show at Billy's Ice House on Saturday night, and
that's Elisa's stomping grounds. Yeah,
is it?
Yeah,
yeah. I grew up in Canyon Lake.
So you know where it is. Well, their sound guy bailed on him, and I want to preface this by saying I am not a sound guy by any means, but
join club, man.
Yeah,
I get it. I understand the concept, and everything was there. And I went and ran sound for him. And when I went into it, I was like, okay, what do I like as a sound guy? What do I like my sound guy to be like? What do I want from my monitor guy? And I treated that like that. I would go up and I'd ask him, hey, do you need more of anything? Are you good? Just checking on him here and there, making sure I kept eye contact.
Yes.
Was a big thing.
Not with a pizza hanging out of your mouth.
Yeah. So I'll pick up gigs like that sometimes. And I'll go play guitar. I played with Darcy Carlson on Friday night. And
okay.
If you haven't heard of her, you need to check her out. She's a badass.
Okay. Yeah.
And, I'll pick up just gigs when I can, be it whatever, whether it's the booking, playing guitar, playing steel, or just doing, studio work here and there whenever it comes my way.
Yeah.
But kind of like a jack of all trades when it comes to music.
Good. Yeah. And that's what I always like. I always try to tell people that are, I have a couple friends in particular that play with artists that are, on the come up, but those certain artists are playing shows right now where they're mainly a support act, and you know how that goes. It's like no money, so they're like, well, I'm not making a ton of money with this. And I'm like, man, you could be making a lot of money just from studio work, just getting out there networking and stuff. So what advice would you have for somebody like, somebody named Billy Bob, and say Billy Bob plays steel guitar or drums or whatever? What advice would you have for somebody like that is trying to make a living being a musician, but his main gig, quote unquote, isn't making him enough money? Like what advice would you have for somebody like that?
And that's perfect, because I'm not the right person, but I guess I am, because I'm trying. The first thing, which may cost you some money, is never stop practicing your craft. Always do something to try to get a little better, to try to learn something, to make yourself as versatile as you can. And then, of course, with that, I've been taking songwriting and vocal lessons, and part of what that's gone into is networking yourself as a musician. And my homework in that right now is actually to try to post at least one video a week on my Instagram, get that social media engagement, try to infiltrate the musicians network and make yourself known. Make yourself that person that somebody thinks about when, like, hey, I need a guitar player, I need a fiddle player, I need whatever. It goes back to the whole networking thing. Just market yourself, put yourself out there. And then when you have those opportunities to go to shows, make sure you're shaking hands, make sure you're rubbing elbows, just get to know people. I
mean, we're sitting here right now because you and Elisa became friends.
There you go. Exactly.
So.
Yeah.
No, you're going to be my BFF before the end of the year.
Yes. Yeah. And it comes down to also, whenever you meet people, just be cool. Jeff Crosby said it best, and I will quote him. He told me this a couple months ago because he was looking for a guitar player, and he's like, they got to have good hang chops. And I was like, it's like, I got to have hang chops. I don't know, you could play, everybody, you can play, but your hang chops are what's important. And that's true, because nobody wants to be on the road with somebody that's a pain in the ass. Nobody.
This is almost in almost every fucking podcast we do. It gets brought up, and I've said it 1,000 times, but I'll say it again. Which, tell me if I'm right or wrong.
Have to be a good hang.
Yeah, you got to be a good hang, but also, I will take A+ attitude with a B+ skill over a B+ hang with an A+ skill, if that makes sense.
So here's the deal. And this, I think I'm a living, breathing example of this, because there was times when I was early on in the motor cars where I was like, I've really got to get better at this steel guitar, because if not, they're just going to get rid of me.
You're so
And
humble. You're so humble.
well, they put up with it for a long time, because I sucked. I mean, and I still, have my days where I don't feel like I'm 100%, and I'm still learning, but when it comes down to it, I think that was a perfect example of it, because I was learning how to play the instrument. I had my flubs on stage here and there. And, there was even one point where Mickey and I talked about it. He's like, hey, why don't you take a break from it for a little while, spend some time with it, and then we'll bring it back out on the road, and I did that. But I will say, and I'm not trying to speak for him, but we all get along really well. And I think maybe a part of why they kept me around is because we got along well,
Well, you have a great personality and you have dedication. And I haven't known you that long, but that's what I see.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And here's the thing too, is like, you can't make an asshole not be an asshole, but you can always take lessons to get better.
Yes.
That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, no, we talk about that almost every single time on this podcast. And it's just, being a good hang is, and if they're just stellar talented, like that's just a bonus, you know what I mean, at that. But I mean, you gotta, I mean, if I was ex-musician and I was, in Austin, Nashville, Dallas, LA, whatever, and I was trying to get out there and do it, I mean, it's finding out how to be a people person. I feel like, at least temper, for that 90 minutes or for that 2 hours, just find out how to be social and just be, the, person that somebody wants to be around, because I don't know, man, we've had people in our camp before that's just been, I'm sure everybody has, anybody listening to this, had that one person or that two people, recently or way back when it's like, man, I was just not looking forward to being at the show with this person that day. Or, I was not looking forward. You don't want that at all. Exactly.
Well, that's also going to affect how you play and how you perform. And when it comes down to, like, it's not about us, it's about the music. It's about Zach Stover of the Saints said something that resounded with me. He said, you earned your seat and everyone there to see you paid for theirs, and you owe it to them to put on as good of a show as you can. And it doesn't matter what bullshit's going on for that 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever, like, you owe it to the audience to put on a show. And you don't want some asshole that did whatever in the bus, bringing you down either.
Yeah. You have to have a good vibe on the stage. I mean, people pick up on it.
Yeah. I wanted to take a quick second to plug our Patreon. So I've had a few people over the last few months kind of reach out and ask how they can support this podcast. And because, they've been listening to all the episodes and they've gained a ton of knowledge on all the guests we've had on this podcast and just the things we've been talking about. And they want the podcast to keep going. Well, first of all, guys, this podcast isn't going to go anywhere. We're going to keep doing it no matter what. We just love doing it, and we love having conversations with each other and with other guests that we're having. We gain a ton of knowledge ourselves as it is. But if you feel like supporting the podcast, which we would highly, highly appreciate, you don't have to, but if you feel so inclined, there is a link down below for our Patreon. It is Raglan's Patreon, but all of the finances from things like this podcast and Patreon and streaming and all that stuff kind of get dumped into the same bucket, so it all goes to the same place. So by supporting Raglan on Patreon, you are by default supporting this podcast. So if you guys feel so inclined, check out the link below. And on that note, I'm sure you guys have noticed over the last 4 or 5 episodes, we've started to have some sponsors on the podcast. That's super cool because this podcast has been growing at a very, very fast rate, which we are extremely stoked about. But if you guys are interested in being a sponsor on this podcast, feel free to reach out to me or Lisa if you guys know us personally, or check out our emails down below in the description. You guys can contact us there. And without any further ado, let's get back into it, guys.
Yesterday was, like, I think the first day in a while that I had just a complete day where I didn't have any obligations. So I took my my boys out, dogs. I have 2 dogs.
I was about to say, you a dad?
No, I mean, I am a dog dad.
Hell yeah, man.
I'm surprised one of them hasn't jumped in my lap yet. But we went and got some steak, sweet potatoes, and zucchini.
Hell yeah, dude.
Good.
Yeah, I didn't watch any Super Bowl yesterday. I ended up, I would like to think that they won because of me, because I turned on Super Bowl on my phone right at the last second, right as they were about to kick the field goal. And I was like, you're welcome. And then turn it off.
Which, by the way, they tried to do a Hail Mary at the end.
Yeah,
it
I
just
saw
did
that.
not work.
Yeah, I literally almost texted you. Said Hail Mary. Me and
Pablo,
Elisa wrote a song.
We wrote a song called Hail Mary.
Is really good. Yeah. But anyway, okay. So, being a guitar player, steel player, a touring musician, a working musician, in which, listen, I'm gonna try to keep this part short-ish because I have a couple other questions I want to ask you. What are some of your pet peeves on the road? And that can be with venues, that can be with sound guys, that can be with other guys on the bus,
the band.
That can be speak freely as much as you want. So we just I know a lot of people listen to this that are, again, bandmates or that work in the industry at all, period. And we like to try to get people to be like, oh shit, I do that.
Think about it.
Think about it for a second.
100%. And I'm gonna preface this by saying that I am guilty of being what I find annoying sometimes.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is not, for me, that comes to mind is not being conscious of the fact that you are with other people, making people wait whenever it's not necessary. You know, of course, there's always things that come up, but like, if we're set to leave at a certain time, and like I said, I'm guilty of being late too. You know, I try not to as much as I can, but at least communicate about it. Sometimes it can't be helped.
Fair.
And I guess that comes down back to it. It's like, if there's going to be a problem with, you know, your punctuality, hey, let somebody know as early as you possibly can. So I won't touch on that too much because that's
so you're saying, like, if you're going to be late for bus call, let somebody know, not get a call
a minute before
like, before and say, hey, I just left my house, I'll be there. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
we're going to be on time 30 minutes ago. You should let us know 30 minutes ago.
And sometimes, like I said, it can't be helped. Like and I'll just let you know, my biggest issue is where I live. I live like in central Austin, pretty close to the UT Stadium and now the new Moody Center. And sometimes when there's events there, I don't know about them, or if there's something going on. So
you got traffic wherever you go. Is what you're saying. Yeah.
And I have to go south on 35, and sometimes they don't tell you, but they'll cut off the way to get on 35 to go south. And realistically, it's only a 10-minute drive from where I am to bus call, and sometimes that turns into a 25 to 30-minute drive, and that I didn't anticipate. So I try to give myself as much time as I can, you know, when I do that. But anyway, the point being, you know, try to be conscious of the fact that you have other people that are waiting for you. You know, that goes the same for, like, you know, when we make a stop, a gas stop, you know, don't go dawdling around or, you know,
shopping in the, gift section at the travel center.
I know how tempting Buc-ee's is, but listen, you can't.
We don't even stop at Buc-ee's anymore because it's just such a pain to get everyone in and out of there. And like, so we don't even stop at Buc-ee's anymore. Which, whatever. But but I guess another thing that comes to mind is, and this is something else, but whenever you were asking me this is what popped in my head, is when we have a load in and sound check time and we show up and nothing's set up and we have to wait for production to set all their stuff up, because that's an extra hour of sleep I could have gotten.
Exactly.
That God knows I needed. And, you know, when it comes down to it, I don't know. There's not really anyone to blame necessarily. That's just communication sometimes. You know, the venue owner told production. But you're
still allowed to be mad at it. You're still allowed to be
Yeah. And I've learned in my old age that sometimes it's easier to be mad at a situation than to hold grudges, you know, and to just get over it, because if you let that shit loom, it's not going to get any better.
Right. Yeah. Don't be like, fuck that sound guy. You know, just be like, this is really.
Can I help you set up so we can get on with it? That's what I'll do.
That is extremely frustrating, where you're sitting around waiting on production when they told you to be there at X time, and an extra hour of sleep could do. I mean, especially on the road, especially if you're already on a stretch, an extra hour of sleep that could be a night and day difference on how the day is going to go. So
there's a book that, and I just tried to look it up, but I don't remember what it's called. Oh, I wish I could figure that out. But it's like the guide to being a road dog or touring musician's guide. And I want to say Dale Watson wrote it.
Okay. Really? That's cool.
I could be wrong about that, about it being Dale Watson. I don't remember who wrote it, but anyway, our drummer Bobby, he bought a couple of it's a short read. It's like super thin and just straight to the point, but it's just like the rules of being on the road with somebody, of sharing a hotel room, and it actually brings up something that can be kind of frustrating, depending on who you're rooming with or if you're rooming with somebody you don't know. But having a TV on or having noise on, or somebody's an early bird and the other person likes to sleep in a little bit, all of that is fine. You're going to be who you're going to be. But again, it goes back to like, just be cool about it. Communicate. Be like, hey, man, I'm going to get up a little early. I'm going to set my alarm. I'm sorry if it wakes you up, but I'll try to be quiet. Or, hey, I'm going to stay out late. I'm going to come in a little bit later. I'll try not to wake you up. That goes a long way. Just acknowledging that you're going to be a little bit of an inconvenience to somebody, ahead of time. Because then it's not a surprise to the other person. Perfect example. Alex, my bunkmate, is one of my best friends. I've known him for 10 plus years.
Does he play drums or bass?
He plays keys.
Keys, okay.
And he and I was just on the phone with him before we started this, actually. We were talking about music. So, hey, hush. And
sorry, man, I was just talking to your dogs, right?
Come on. Anyway, and Alex and I feel like we've got a good thing going, but I will say, like, he's a really light sleeper, and I am a big dude that runs into shit sometimes or drops stuff and in the dark. And sometimes I'll wake him up and I feel bad about it. And the next day he might be like, "You're so loud last night." I was like, because he's a really light sleeper too. But yeah, I mean, to answer the question, just, be cool about stuff, because he has a white noise machine that we keep in our room at night too. And at first I hated that thing. I could not stand it. And now, no bullshit, I'm not kidding you, I sleep to a noise machine every night, even at home now. And it makes a huge difference.
No, it works.
That's funny.
It really does work. I mean, I wasn't used to it either. And when I started going on the road, my roommate started, she had that. And I was like, okay, how am I? Yeah. At first I was kind of like, okay, I don't know.
Yeah, Newt does. Our merch guy sleeps with, he likes to play like, what is it, like rain noises or rainforest noises?
Thunderstorms.
Yeah, Newt does that stuff. Yeah. So,
hey,
yeah. I'm cool with or without it, though. I'm kind of, this is relaxing. It's a little different, but if I'm tired, I'm fucking out either way. Yeah.
Personally, I really enjoy it. I think it's a great thing, and because it levels out quick, loud sounds is the other thing too. You have this constant or something like that. If something happens or I drop something, it's going to be loud, but you've already got noise happening, so it's like
right.
Yeah, it's surprising. But anyway, and that's really all I can think of right now.
So let me pick your brain, because you know what, we talk about this sometimes here on the podcast, and I'm like, what are some pet peeves? And everybody's like, man, I don't really have any. But then like we start to dig for it a little bit more, and then we get some more of them. Okay, so let's talk about opening acts. And I say this as a band that that's the majority of what. There we go. Okay, here we go.
Yeah,
okay. As a band that, listen, we have been at times the worst fucking opening act ever. We work on it every show to try to become a better act, to be respectful to everybody, and be more professional stuff. And I ask all these questions again as somebody who's an opening act. What is your pet peeves when it comes to opening bands?
Okay, when you're done with your show, yes, there are people there that want to talk to you. Yes, you probably have friends there. You probably have family. You might even be thirsty and want to drink. But for someone like me, especially, who has to set up 2 instruments on the stage every night, I need that 10 to 15 minutes to do that. Get your shit out of the way.
Get off the stage.
Yeah. Don't sit there and talk. Because I mean, whether it's like a throw and go like festival setting, or it's a just a bar gig somewhere, just be courteous of the fact that there are other people there that are also there to work. Because this is our job. And I take it seriously when it comes to it. I want to make sure I've got everything set up to do my job as well as I can. And I won't say any names, but there was one time where this guy got off stage, left all his gear there, and I gave him like 5 minutes, which 5 minutes is a long time.
Hey, we're off the stage in 3.
We got it down to 3 minutes.
When it comes to changeover, 5 minutes is a long time.
It is.
And because it goes back to, I've got to tune that steel before we play. It's been sitting there. I've got to make sure it's in tune because I don't want to get up there and sound like an ass. But I said something. I went up to, I was like, hey man, I really need to set up. Do you think, Lisa, you've met me well enough. I'm not just going to walk up to some guy and be an asshole to him for no reason. And I wasn't. And I said to him, I was like, hey, can you get your stuff off stage? I really need to set up. And he got so bent out of shape. I've been doing this a long time and I don't need to be told this or that. And I was just like, that's cool, man. I've been doing this a long time too. And I just need to set my stuff up. And then he just kept getting, I was like, you can get angry, you can get mad. I was like, I still need to set my stuff up.
Yeah, I got 10 minutes.
Doesn't matter who's been doing it for what. Listen, I still have to set my stuff up.
and when it comes down to it, man, it's like, I don't care how long you've been doing whatever you've been doing. It goes back to what we were talking about. Yeah. If you're good and you're an asshole, nobody cares, And long story short with that, I just let it go. I told our TM at the time, I was like, hey, keep an eye on this guy. He's got like a chip on his shoulder or something. I don't want him to be other. So I will say this is me kind of being the way I got quote unquote back at him is I went up there and I just played a little harder. I just went there on stage, just let it hang. I just let it
channel that shit.
Yeah, because he was a guitar player too. And and I didn't know him, he didn't know me, but like it doesn't matter. We're not here to like see who's been doing what longer. It's like we're here to put on a show. When you're done, just be mindful of the fact that there's another band going on after you. And I don't want to start 30 to 45 minutes after you because you took 20 minutes to get your stuff off stage.
Right. Yeah. No, very good. Very good.
I think something that happened a lot last year for Raglan is like the drummers like disassembling on the stage. Like, what is happening?
Yeah, and
get off of there. We still got 3 minutes.
We didn't even do that many headlining shows last year, but I swear to freaking Moses, dude. Every freaking show it was like, what are these bands doing?
I know.
And it's just like,
and I'm standing there huffing and puffing, like I'm about to go up there.
I'll say that the fact matters of all of this is that sometimes these guys who were, this might be their 10th show ever,
Right. Yeah, and that's why I try to give grace about it because, again, I don't know. It was, man,
they might not know.
I look at myself 3 years ago and I was the guy high-fiving everybody else, oh, that was a cool show, man. Everybody's all huddled up on the side of the stage and our shit's still literally on the stage, Yeah. I used to be that guy. So, and I know that they're just excited that they're, they're at, they played a good show or, like, oh, you nailed that key change or, whatever the fuck they're, but at the end of the day, it's like, get your shit off stage.
Yeah, that's the first thing.
Please.
This brings me to another point, and this goes more for people who want to help. Because don't get me wrong, I love when someone wants to help load out, but, and this goes for all you people listening who are that person, make sure you ask before you help because sometimes you can pick
very good point. Yeah.
Well, my pedal steel, for example, I leave my picks in my bar on top of it. And if you pick that up and you don't know that it's there and I haven't moved it yet, which that's another thing too, don't touch another man's pedal steel without
I agree with that. I won't ever touch steel. Like I'll get the guitar.
Yeah.
There's microphones.
I don't even know how to hold one.
That's what I say. There is a way to pick them up. And because, you could potentially damage one if you pick it up and you don't know how. If you grab one of those
you grab it by the strings, right? That's how you pull the pedals to
it. Yeah. And like I said, like it's cool. I love having like stage hands and help to get stuff off stage, especially quicker. But just make sure you're communicating with the musician that you're helping, because you don't want to grab something and something fly off. Like if I'm in Illinois or Missouri playing a show, these pedal steel bars are not something I could just go buy at the music store, most of the time. So like if that thing goes missing or whatever, it's
and you got 20 more shows.
yeah, it's a tool that I need to do my job. But yeah, I'm just thinking of all these little things now that are coming into my mind now that you asked me a question about
that. That's what happens on this podcast.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how annoyed with you are you with like noodlers on stage? With the guy
I think everyone should noodle on stage. I'm guilty of that.
What's your go-to song? What's your go-to noodle song?
My go-to noodle?
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't even know. That's a tough question.
I'm so scared to noodle every time. I'm going to
think about it next time I noodle. The thing that I will do, which gets confused for noodling, is I will check my intonation on my guitar, because that B bender is real goofy with how it's set up. Sometimes some of the set screws will back off, and the way that it's mounted, it actually affects the intonation of my B string. So I'll sit there and I'll check that out a bit, and it sounds like I'm noodling, but I'm not. I'm actually just, making sure it's working properly. Because the way that gets messed up is just being in the trailer, it vibrates loose. So
yeah.
I guess to answer your question, I mess with my B bender to noodle. And
Hell yeah. All right, let's talk about road life there for a second. So, are you guys? Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys are on a bus.
We are in a Sprinter.
Okay. Did you guys used to be on a bus, or the whole time that you've been on? Go ahead.
Before I was with the band, they did have a bus, and I want to say they had a fire incident, and they.
Oh wow.
So it's actually kind of funny, because my first gig with the band ever, we actually used Reckless's bus for the week.
Nice.
And then from there, we had to go on a tour, and the Sprinter was out of commission at that point in time. So we had to take like a 15-passenger van to the East Coast. And it was my first tour. And so I think there was something like, the universe made me go in a 15-passenger van, on my first trip. And but no, we travel in a Sprinter a majority of the time, and it's comfortable. It's actually my favorite method that we travel in.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 2 seats. We got a lounge area with a TV, and we'll play Mario Kart in there sometimes. And
hell yeah.
We each have our own bunk, and so I mean it's roomy. It's like a small bus.
So you have bunks in the Sprinter.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
And I have recently, just in the past like 6 months, figured out how to make it comfortable for me. Because for the longest time I could not sleep in the bunk. Just something about the not driving and being on the road with somebody else driving just kind of bothered me. And now, like, we actually just last week we drove home from Oklahoma, and it was like an 8-hour drive or something like that. And I slept most of the way because I needed it, but I've learned that if I get in my bunk, I have to have a blanket or a sheet over me to really feel like chill.
Yeah. It is kind of weird. It's hard for me to sleep whenever other people are driving, because I just always feel like, and it gets worse the more tired I get, because I get more delusional. I just think that I'll wake up in a panic, like if I'm in the front seat of the SUV or something, and like if I'm just sitting there in the passenger seat and somebody's driving, and out of nowhere I'm just like, oh shit, we're about to wreck, and Autumn's like, no, you're not.
We're not. You did it to me on the way home from West Texas one morning. I mean, I was watching the sunrise, and you did that. You woke up and you're like, oh my God. I'm like, go back to sleep.
So walk me through who all you guys have on y'all's team. You got 5 guys in the band, correct? 5 or 6?
It just depends on whether or not we have keys.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
He doesn't go to every gig. but he is more or less with us most of the time.
Okay, cool.
So go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No. So you guys have that you have a tour manager. Who else do you guys have? You guys have separate management and agent for you guys, or who else do you guys have like in the
on the road? And see, on the business side of that, we have a guy in the background. We got a couple people that are, I guess, like our management team on the back end. But on the road specifically, the constant faces that I see, we're actually kind of in between tour managers. And then, of course, we'll have a merch guy that comes out with us here and there. And then the band. So it's just us with me, Bobby, Paul, our drummer, Andy Carroll, which from he's a bass player, and then Mickey and Gary. And then Alex Hartley, who is the keys player that will come out every once in a while.
Literally, I have an unread email in my email with Josh right now. We were talking about it this morning, but yeah. Hopefully I get to meet you sometime soon, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's I don't know if we played in Kansas since I've been with the band a whole lot. I want to show you.
Most people just drive through that state, but there's a couple. There's a couple good markets. Dodge and Hayes and Wichita, Manhattan. There's a few good markets up there. But
I want to show y'all something really quickly that I'm proud of. I don't know if it'll show up on camera or not, but when I started with the band in 2018, I started keeping track of everywhere that we've gone or played a show, and
nice.
And
awesome.
What's funny is you look at that direct line between Austin and Seattle-ish, and it's like I feel like you guys make that route up there to and from Idaho region probably like 3 times a year. Am I wrong about that? Or
to be honest with you, like Idaho has become like a second home, honestly.
Nice.
I have friends up there now who are like family that I'll have for the rest of my life, just because that's where the guys are from.
Right,
and,
right.
A lot of, we spend a lot of time up there throughout the year. We're up there for BBR. We'll do like a summer tour that we end up there. And it always feels like I'm just visiting a second home every time. Yeah. Go to Boise or go, to Stanley, which I don't know if you've ever been to Stanley,
Idaho. Yeah. Well, I know that's where they're from, right? Or is it, right?
That area.
Yeah.
Stanley, Idaho is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And I say that very confidently. It is incredible.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, we spend a lot of time up there. I've done, we've gone to the Midwest a little bit. Haven't gone east a whole lot, which I would like. We did a cruise last year, which was my first time to do a cruise, and got to visit some cool spots, play on a cruise ship.
Yeah, that kind of got me into my next thing too, which was like, what are some of the cool milestones that you've had in the band?
I would say that was definitely one, because for me, at least, that was my first time to play internationally, technically.
Awesome.
Technically.
Yeah.
Did y'all just go to Mexico?
It counts.
We went to Jamaica, Grand Cayman,
cool.
Mexico. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's fucking awesome.
But I got to spend some time in each one of those places and like really kind of soak in and take in the fact that like I'm in a foreign country,
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, I'm no stranger to travel, but it's still like cool to see the fact that it's just so different than what we're used to at home.
Oh yeah. But it's cool just that we get to do it anyway. Like this is our job. Like,
and I'm not the kind who's going to go to a Margaritaville, whenever, So like in Jamaica, some friends and I that were there from my hometown, we jumped in a cab with this guy and we just spent the day with him, and he took us to all these divey spots, kind of sketchy places, but it was just cool. It was everyone was chill. I had no idea how many types of red stripe there were. And it was kind of fun because like I got to try some authentic Jamaican food, hang out with some cool people. It was a really, really cool time. And I definitely enjoyed it. But I would say the cruise ship for me, at least personally, was kind of a milestone because I'd never done anything like that. We got to do the Merle Haggard tribute show at Steamboat, and I felt like that was pretty prolific experience.
Was that the event that you guys met? You two met? Was that the Merle Haggard thing?
The Steamboats, yeah. Sunny was the MC for the Merle Haggard show.
I don't know if it was there specifically.
No, I think we had met. I think before that.
Yeah,
like the first night. Well, the first night I got to Steamboat, I think that was like the third day.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
To be honest with you, when I met you and Sonny and everyone there, it's like, Andy used to play with Sonny,
right.
So he had nothing but good things to say about her and her camp. And just sometimes you meet people and just become friends. And I will say I've got this thing where once you know me, you can't unknow me.
Same. That's how I feel. Like we have a Polaroid. We have a Polaroid together.
We know Polaroid. Oh man, you need to see that album. So, my friend Lauren, she's from Pink House Distributing. They sponsored the artist tent at Mile Zero this year, and they had a Polaroid backstage. And she handed it to me. She's like, "Hey, you think you could get rid of some of this film and just take a bunch of Polaroid pictures?" So I was walking around with this pink Polaroid camera around.
Yeah.
Taking so many, and there's an album of it. She actually uploaded all of them digitally into this deal, so I'm sure we'll see them at some point. Cool. But yeah, there's a ton of them.
Yeah, because we were in the tent and you were taking pictures. Yeah, we took a selfie, and I think you took one of me.
I have so many of those pictures. Yeah. So, but going back to your question, ask me one more time. I'm sorry.
Well, we were just talking about being backstage. When we met.
Oh yeah. And I remember
See, this is a rabbit hole, man.
It's okay. I will say I remember talking to Sunny and introducing myself, because I've always been a fan of Sunny and her music, and that was my first time to meet her. And I told her too, I was like, I don't usually do this, but I just want to fanboy for a second because I really like your music and I really appreciate you, and I like to hear that, so I want to tell you, Yeah. And yeah, but that's
when we met. That's when we met because we were outside.
We were all outside.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was before the Haggard show or if we were just.
It was before. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we did. Motorcars did quite a bit on that. We played our song, then we backed up Willie, and I also played with Tom Shepard.
Very cool. Hell yeah.
So, I mean, I got to do 3 different. I think I did the most up there as far
Look at you, man. God.
But yeah, it was fun. I mean, we had a good time, and like that was honestly one of my favorite parts of Steamboat this past. In fact, the past handful of years, those tribute shows have been my favorite parts. We did Cross Canadian Ragweed a couple years ago. Then last year we did Jerry Jeff. And this year was Merle Haggard. And like, it's really, really cool to be able to pay tribute and be a part of something like that, because, without those dudes, we wouldn't have this scene like it is today,
I agree. Well, and it's unique to see all the different artists. They all sound different, and it's like something that brings an artist together is another artist, right? Like Merle Haggard or Johnny Cash or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then it's interesting to see which songs they like to pick or which ones they like to play. And I loved it too, because there was 4 different artists up there and they just kind of were doing, swapping the songs and stuff. And I mean, it's just unique. I like that unification behind it.
It is. We're paying tribute to the greats, and like it's the fans love it too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I can't tell you how much good feedback we got from that as a whole, and I really, really. I always look forward to that. I can't wait to see who we do next year.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited to go back for sure.
Off the top of your head, and we're gonna try to close it into Texas only, so that so you can try to narrow it down. Favorite bar food at a venue, bar/venue food. Favorite bar/venue food in Texas, and what are some of your favorite places to play, like in Texas, inside Texas? I know we got 1,000 venues to pick from, but like when you're just like when you see this certain venue on the upcoming tour date, you're like, oh, I can't wait to eat their whatever. What food is that, and what venue is that?
I'm thinking about this.
There is no wrong answer unless you pick the wrong one.
There isn't really, but I was like, there's so many places that we do here in Texas. Like, just think about, you know what? I will say this: the place that comes to mind as far as like one of my favorite places to play is definitely Green Hall. Green Hall is just it's a cool show. It's a great hang. Just being in New Braunfels and Green is always a good time. And
the audience is exciting.
Oh,
love sweating your ass off though, huh?
Man, the last time we played, it was cool, which was nice. But yes, those summer nights in Green Hall. Actually, it's funny.
Which, by the way, I can't wait. Y'all are going to be there March 4th. I'm really trying to see if I can make it down there.
Oh, I hope you can. It's going to be a good time. Jeff Crosby's opening up for us that day too, I think, and it's going to be. If you haven't seen him, he just moved to Texas. He's awesome. I'll get to the food thing in a second, but I will say something funny is I had an ex-girlfriend who was with me at one of the Green Hall shows, and we're all cool. And I hope she hears this because it's still kind of funny. And it was the middle of summer, and I asked her, I was like, "Hey, can you get me an iced coffee? Because I got to get my shit together or whatever before we go on stage." And she brought me a hot coffee. And she's like, "Sorry, I know it's hot."
No.
I was like, "Oh, it's way too hot. I can't drink this." And I used to give her a show like, "Remember that time you brought me a hot coffee and it was like 100 degrees?"
Yeah, inside. Yeah, I saw Ray Wiley Hubbard one time in there. I thought I was gonna die.
Yeah,
and I was up against the stage. I was sitting on the stage.
But you know what? It's still a cool venue, even when the thing is, everybody's sweating.
Yeah, it's iconic, and I always look back and I look at the crowd. The crowd is what makes it exciting.
Yeah,
they're pumped.
Man, I'm trying to think about like what I look forward to as far as like restaurants or something go. Or like,
well, what's your go-to food at the bar? If you're at
if we're just talking about like a bar, I would lean towards wings over burgers.
Fair. Yep. Fair. Very fair.
And mostly because burgers.
Unless the place is known for burgers, you know what I'm saying? If it's like Sam's Burger Joint or the Golden Light or some shit like that, like hell yeah, give me the burger, But no, I feel you. Yeah, wings, like the fry food, it's hard to screw that up.
Yeah,
some do. Some do. But
it's one of those things too. Like I don't want to be like eat something real heavy before I get on stage because Mickey and I move around a lot, and there's a song or two where we pretty much get on the ground, and I got to be able to get up,
So what's a song? This is my last question, I think. What's a song that you guys play live when you see it coming up on the set list, and you're like, hell yeah, I can't wait to play that song? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but the Motorcars doesn't necessarily have one or two songs that's like their biggest hit. It seems like you guys have a lot of just hit after hit after hit.
Yes, and it's actually regional, like where the songs are more popular.
Okay. So so like the radio in Austin might have spun this song more than
one of
radio
the song talks about Idaho. People are gonna love that. There's specific songs that mention, of course, Carolina Morning. People from the Carolinas love the Carolina Morning, and they should. Road to You talks about Idaho, talks about Texas, I'm over here fidgeting with this tuner. Sorry.
How long or how shitty is the drive? Because I know you've had to make it from Rock Springs to Cheyenne. How shitty is that drive?
I wish we had more time because my first year in the band, we actually got stuck there for like 2 or 3 days with Cody Canada and his group because we were on a tour with them. And it was pretty shit. I'd fallen on the ice that morning. We left Salt Lake City and we ended up having a couple days off, which I needed because I fucking busted my ass. But I want to answer your question about the songs. We play.
Oh shit! Sorry.
No, you're fine. We play Long Enough to Leave into Seashell as kind of like a back-to-back medley. And those two, every time I see those on the set, like I look forward to that because those songs really give me some room to shine. But at the same time, those are just, I think, two of my favorite Motorcar songs that we play, that we have. And every time I see those, I get excited. So